they just keep going yo-yo back and forth. They lose the weight, they gain it back, they lose the weight, they gain it back. This is a super frustrating cycle. Hey guys, welcome back to It's Pretty Simple. I'm Nikita, and this is a podcast where we try to simplify fitness, nutrition, fat loss into actionable tips that you can actually use in your journey, whatever it is. So losing weight isn't just about seeing the scale go down, it's more about keeping that weight off, right? So I'm pretty sure if some of you have had this thought of, I need to lose weight, you want to lose it, but you also want to keep it off. So essentially what you're trying to do is lose fat, because the weighing scale is made up of so much more than just your body fat. The biggest goal in this is to keep it off in the long term. And I don't know, maybe you've experienced this, or you know somebody who's experienced this, and they just keep going yo-yo back and forth. They lose the weight, they gain it back, they lose the weight, they gain it back. This is a super frustrating cycle, and today we're going to dive into how you can actually prevent going into this yo-yo back and forth thing by understanding the benefits of protein. Now I know you're thinking, oh my god, protein, that's all I'm hearing. And yes, it is everywhere, and it's everywhere for a good reason. Protein is one of the most important macronutrients that we need in order for us to lose fat, for us to build muscle, and just for longevity purposes. I know I said I'm not going to talk much about science, but we're just going to try to break down what protein really is so you understand it a little bit before I go into a little bit more detail. So what exactly is protein? Protein is one of the three macronutrients. So we have carbohydrates, we have fats, and we have protein. Protein is made up of amino acids, which is basically the building blocks for our muscles, our skin, enzymes, hormones. Protein is absolutely critical for us to be building and repairing muscle and tissue in our body. And so it's a super important part of our diet. Now, the thing is, our body doesn't produce all the protein that we need. So there's non-essential protein, which our body produces, and then there's essential protein, which our body does not produce, and we need to get it from outside sources like animals. So what happens if we don't get these essential proteins from external sources? Weakened immune system, we can have fertility problems, we can have issues with growing kids, depression, and the list goes on. So it's absolutely vital that we get these essential amino acids from outside sources. Our body is also not able to build muscle without protein, because protein is the building block to muscle and tissue. So that's a little bit about protein. I'm going to jump into how it relates to weight loss and fat loss and all of that. So there was a study that was done that had explored the role of protein with weight management. They took 148 participants, and by the end of the study, they had lost between 5 to 10% of their body weight. This group was divided into two separate groups, and one group was given additional amount of protein than just their maintenance, while the other group was only given their maintenance amount of protein. The ones that consumed more protein had better benefits. So the group with the higher protein, intake regained 50% less of their weight than the group with the normal maintenance protein intake. Moreover, they also preserved their lean muscle mass, which is essentially what we want to do, which basically means that they maintained muscle while burning more fat. This is crucial because muscle mass helps keep your metabolic rate higher, even as you're losing weight. So they do say as we age, our metabolic rate tends to slow down, but it's not really that your metabolic rate slows down as you age. It's not something that just happens. I don't know if you heard the previous episode that I did on losing muscle in your 30s. What happens when we start to age is that we start losing muscle mass. And the less muscle that your body has, the slower your metabolic rate is. So when they say as you age, your metabolic rate tends to slow down, it's because you're starting to lose muscle mass. So it is possible to not actually slow down your metabolic rate as you get older if you are continuing to maintain and continuing to build muscle. So you will see people who are like 70-year-old triathletes, for example, they still have a high metabolic rate, and that's because they have muscle mass. If you see a 30-year-old or if you see a 25-year-old person who's sedentary, which means they don't move at all, they probably have a slower metabolic rate. So at the end of the day, your metabolic rate can continue to be high, and you can make it higher depending on how much muscle mass you have. So if you hear that, oh yeah, your metabolic rate is going to slow down as you get older, you can stop that from happening by simply building more muscle. So another benefit that they noticed from the study, that the people who had higher protein in their diet felt full for much longer. Another finding from the study was that the protein group reported increased feeling of fullness, which prevented them from overeating, and it managed to control their appetite because protein does increase your fullness hormone and decreases the hunger hormone. So it's a win, because if you eat more protein, you're going to be full longer and you're not going to end up craving things. So the way I like to do it is try to get as much protein as I can earlier in the day, so that I know that as the day goes by, I'm not going to feel hungry and I'm not going to jump into the snack closet. And I also tell my clients the same thing. So how do you do it? The best way is to aim for 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. This is a good starting point. Even if you start at 20, if you're not used to having that much protein, it's a good starting point. But I would say 25 grams per meal, including snacks, is probably the best way to go. Now, this amount can help stimulate protein synthesis, and it's also going to keep you full longer, as I just mentioned earlier. There's a lot of online calculators that you can use to check your macro needs for your protein, carbs, and fats. So when it comes to protein, these calculators usually give you your maintenance. So the normal thing is 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So this is for somebody who's sedentary. Now, this is the maintenance amount. Now, your maintenance amount means that you're just going to maintain the amount of muscle that you have in your body, right? And this is for somebody who's not doing anything. So you're not walking, you're not exercising, you're not doing anything. 0.8 grams. Now, this is not going to build your muscle. So as you get older, this number is like not going to work, right? So for example, if there's a person weighing 70 kilograms, they should consume 56 grams of protein every single day to maintain their muscle mass and overall health. So just for maintenance sake. So if you want to actually continue building muscle, you need to eat a lot more. And if you're having daily movement, if you're somebody who's even going out for a walk, let's say you're not going to the gym, you like to go out for walks, you like to bike, you're just doing things around the house, this 56 grams of protein is not going to be enough. So for those who are more active and exercise regularly, or even if you're training for an event or whatever, just being a little bit more active, your protein needs are going to change. So it all depends on what you are doing, what your days are like, and what your goal is. So all the activity put together is going to determine the amount of protein that you actually need. So usually if somebody is quite active, we look at 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And then if somebody's training even more, we can also go up to 1.7. I personally like to go even above that. I am currently doing 2.9 grams of my body weight. Some people might say it's too much, but there's enough studies out there that show that it's not dangerous to have that much protein. Because I'm 49 kilos, I have about 145 grams of protein per day. And that's because I'm extremely active. I do chores around the house. I walk every day. I commute with a bicycle. I go to the gym. I do jiu-jitsu. Like, there's a lot of things happening, and therefore, I like to have my protein intake higher. So honestly, the calculation is really going to depend on your specific goal. So I usually start my clients on 120 grams of protein per day. And a lot of the times, most of them are not even having the minimum amount for their body's maintenance. So asking them to jump straight to 120 is a little bit hard, but that is essentially the target that we're trying to get to. So what we do is we try to log their protein and try to increase it by 15 to 20 grams per week until they actually hit the target of 120. And then once they manage to stay consistent with that, we can take it up depending on what their goal is and where they're at. But I like to keep it at 120 despite of what their weight is, because it's usually a good place to try and hit, because a lot of the times you can't even hit that much if you're not somebody who has been doing this for a long time. Making sure that they're hitting that 120 grams of protein is going to ensure that they are above their maintenance most of the time, and we still need them to be in a deficit if they want to lose weight. So then we distribute the rest of the calories with the carbs and fats, again depending on what their goal is. So if somebody is doing a lot of endurance, I like to keep the carbs a little bit higher. If somebody is more sedentary, except for the workouts that I'm giving them, then we kind of balance it out. But 120 is a good target to have, and all you got to do is pick it up slowly. Even if 15 grams per week, eventually you're going to get it. Now the question is, how can you incorporate more protein? This is an issue that I have with all my clients. Like, the number one problem is not getting enough protein and not being able to incorporate it properly. It does take practice, but once you dial it down, it's pretty simple to do. So the number one tip, as I already mentioned, is fill your protein up earlier in the day. Okay, so if you're aiming for that 25 to 30 grams of protein earlier in the day, the chances of you managing to hit your goal is much easier. So the 25 to 30 throughout the whole day is going to help you. So how can you incorporate more protein in your diet in a way that helps you actually reach your goals? This is an issue that my clients usually face, and this is one of the biggest topics we always talk about, which is why I wanted to do it. So if you start to get your protein earlier in the day, as I already mentioned, that's one way of making sure that you've got a big chunk out of the way. Personally, I like to make sure I get at least 35 grams for my breakfast. So I'll do 2 eggs, I'll do cottage cheese, and I'll also add some egg whites. If I don't add egg whites, I always get protein bread. So bread that is high in protein, and that automatically will take my protein intake for breakfast higher up. After breakfast, I actually have a snack, and I always make sure that it is a protein shake. So the one that I use gives me about 25 grams of protein. And so I know I've got the 36 plus the 25, which is what, my math is so bad, 30, 40, 50, yeah, about 60 something. I'm getting 60 something already from just my breakfast and my snack. And then the rest of the day, I try to do at least 170 to 200 grams of chicken every single day. And no, it doesn't get boring, because you just got to get creative with how you're making the chicken. So I always make it in different ways. But so that ensures me that I'm going to get at least 50 grams of protein from my chicken that I'm going to eat for lunch. And by then I'm already quite full. So then I usually have another protein shake, and then I'll have my dinner, which goes a little bit lower. But overall, I managed to hit my target. Some days I even end up having 2 scoops of protein powder, because it's okay if I need to hit the 145 and I haven't managed to yet. So this is what I personally do. Let's talk about some other options and other things that I add into my food. So eggs obviously are great. If you keep doing this, you're going to start to understand how much protein is in everything. So in a medium-sized egg, you get about 6 to 7 grams of protein. So if you have that, if you add some cottage cheese with it, some Greek yogurt, you've got yourself a nice filling protein breakfast. Greek yogurt is great. Cottage cheese is great as an add-on. Chicken breast, as I already said. Get lean meats most of the time, because that will help you keep the fats low as well, and making sure that the protein is high up. Fish, salmon is great. It is high in fat, but it's a great source of protein. Tuna is a very great source of protein. This is something I add into my diet as well. White fish is also great. It's higher in protein, lower in fat. So there's a lot of options, and you can just play around with it. So there's also beans and legumes and lentil, if you're vegetarians, that you can add into soups and salads and things like that. Tofu is also a great option if you're a vegetarian. But there are a lot of options out there, and you just need to figure out different ways to incorporate it into your meal. So protein shakes are great, and they're convenient for on the go, or if you're feeling really full and you don't want to actually have a whole meal. And yes, it is okay to have a protein shake every single day. And no, you don't have to only have a protein shake on the day that you work out. It's like saying, I'm not going to eat chicken breast because I did not work out today. At the end of the day, we're trying to get the amino acids, the essential amino acids that you can find in protein shakes as well as in your chicken or your eggs. And I'm not saying that you should completely cut out all the foods and only drink protein shakes, because it's a supplement, it's not a whole food. We need whole foods in our diet. So yes, it's a great add-on, and you should be having it every single day. But no, don't let it replace other foods, obviously. So do you have to count your protein for the rest of your life, or even every single macronutrient, every single calorie that you're having? No, you do not. But I think it is super important that you have an understanding of what you are eating first. Yes, it's different. If you're somebody who has a history of an eating disorder or something like that, there are different approaches that we can use. However, if you are someone who has not had any issues and you want to really dial this down, it is important for you to learn. And then once you've done that, you can switch into intuitive eating. Because if you look at your plate and you can't tell how much of everything is in what, like you don't know, the rice that you have on your plate, how much carbs does it have? The chicken that you have on your plate, how much protein does it have? You can't switch to intuitive eating. So I feel like it's something that you really should do. You should get into habit of it for even a month. understand what's in each of the foods, and then you can just switch. Like for me, I don't count 24/7, obviously. I probably count maybe twice a year when I have a specific goal, or sometimes I come back from vacation and it's been a long one and I'm not trained or anything like that. But most of the time, I can already eye my food and I know how much I'm gonna get in each thing, right? And this is something that just comes out of practice, out of habit. And once you dial that, you go straight into intuitive eating. You're still going to be achieving your goals, no problem. So yes, it may seem a little bit tedious to begin with. It may seem overwhelming. It may seem annoying even, but it's worth it once you learn it. It's just something you can do blindly. All right, now we're going to come to the fun question that a lot of people ask me. If I have too much protein shakes, am I going to bulk up? If you have too much chicken breast, are you going to bulk up? If you eat too many eggs, are you going to bulk up? Obviously not. Again, as I said, protein shakes are simply a supplement. It's to add into your diet to help you achieve your goals for your protein, help you make sure you are hitting your targets, you are building muscle, you are maintaining your tissue and all of that, right? The only thing with protein shakes is it's easier for you to consume 25 grams of protein through having a shake than consuming 25 grams of protein from having 100 grams of chicken breast. It's just easier to digest. So no, to answer that question, it's not going to make you bulky. You are not going to look like a man. So another common question I get from my clients is, Coach, do I need to have my protein shake right after my workout? And the answer is no, you don't. So the idea of the anabolic window, or short period post-workout where protein consumption is thought to be the most beneficial, has been debated. The optimal time for protein intake can extend to 4 to 6 hours before or after your exercise. But the most important part is your total protein intake throughout the day, rather than trying to find these windows, because there's a lot of different studies on that, but there's nothing that has actually said, no, this is a window that you have to have it in. So your focus should not be that. The focus should just be to make sure you're hitting your targets throughout your day. If you enjoy having a protein shake right after your workout, go for it. But if you miss it, it's really not a big deal. Nothing's going to come from it. Having protein immediately after your training is not going to really matter that much. Let's address another common issue that people have. The question is eating too much protein dangerous? My first question is, how much is too much? It would be almost impossible for you to consume the amount of protein that would possibly be dangerous for you. Some people worry that it's going to affect their kidneys, but trust me, there's no way you would be able to eat that much protein to even get to that point. And if you are a healthy individual, then you're going to benefit from eating a decent amount of protein. There is research that shows for healthy individuals, increased protein is beneficial. And there was another study that they did on older adults, and they gave them a high protein diet, and they found no effects on their kidney function at all. And it also showed that it was linked to healthier aging and higher metabolism. So there's all these studies. I'm going to link them in the show notes at the bottom, so make sure you check them out if you have any concerns. But overall, having protein is safe. Protein is absolutely important, and it's not just for building muscle, but you also need to think about longevity and your health. If you want to keep your metabolism high, if you want to make sure that you can't recover, protein is your go-to. If you want to lose fat and keep it off, the most important part is keeping the body fat off, have your protein. I hope you found this deep dive into protein useful. I hope you found some ideas of how you can incorporate more protein into your diet, and also, most importantly, understanding how important it is to make sure that you are hitting the targets of your protein for every aspect of your life. And especially if you're really trying to lose fat, this is so important. There's a ton of studies out there that go into more details on all of this. I'm going to post as many in the show notes as I can. It's super fascinating, it's super interesting, and when you hear coach, or you see all these people on social media saying have your protein, have your protein, have your protein, there's a reason behind it. So hope you found this helpful, hope you managed to take something away from this, and don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, whatever platform you're using. Thanks guys for tuning in, and I will see you next week.